Morning. We're going to continue now the Sicha we started in Chelik Chaf Aleph. We're holding now Eis Daled. The beer and them. The explanation is as follows: the Shaila in Pasuk was Rashi kum verändern is Parvos telt der Pasuk verander de zwei Jahren beweim al el Moed und begishtam al Mizbayiach l'sharis. Bis as der Chia Brechitze berachzu zusammen mit der Azara v'lo Musu werden gesagt bei jeden Fall besonders. So now what's bothering Rashi is, why does the pasuk separate and say that when the kohen comes in el Moed, so yichatzu mayim v'lo musu, and then it says begishtam el hamizbeach l'sharis. L'chayra, what the pasuk gedarf is a koilo zayin zusammen. L'chayra, seemingly the pasuk should have just included both of them together. Like exactly the same halacha that the kohen has to wear the bigdei kahuna when he comes into the Mishkan. So the pasuk says, "V'hayu al arin v'al banav b'vayim al el Moed." It says clearly that when Aaron and his children come into the Ohel Moed or come to the Mizbayiach, they have to wear the begadim. And then you could say certainly that when it says l'sharis lahaktir, it's going on also the first part of the pasuk of b'vayim al el Moed. That's what's bothering Rashi. Why does the pasuk separate it? B'vayim al el Moed yechatzu mayim v'lo musu is one, and then the next case is a begishtam al mizbeach l'sharis b'kedesh. It should say, just like by the begadim, it says that when Aaron comes into the oil or he goes to the Mizbayiach, the Sharis Bakedesh, it should have said the same thing by the Bevayim al Moed Yechatzu Mayim v'lo Musu. The fun is Rashi Machriach, so therefore Rashi says, Rashi is forced to say, as is the achilik zwischen dem Chiyav Rechitza Bevayim al Moed and dem Chiyav Begishtam al Mizbeach l'Sharis. There's going to be a big difference between when the kohen has to wash his hands when he comes into the Ohel Moed, or when the kohen goes to the Mizbeach. The Rechitza Begishtam al Mizbeach l'Sharis is adin in klalis hagisha. This halacha that the kohen has to wash his hands and his feet when he comes to the Mizbeach, when he's making an aveda, is a general halacha in regards to coming to the Mizbeach. Shesiyumah, the sharis avedas ha-Mizbeach. The purpose is to serve on the Mizbeach. Yedemol, the Mizmasharis al-Mizbeach, is da basundere chiyav rechitza. Every time that the kohen has to bring another aved or has to serve on the Mizbeach, he has to wash his hands beforehand. However, the first part of the pasuk, when the Torah tells me that when the kohen comes into the Ohel Moed, he has to wash his hands, that's a din in entering the Mishkan. Even though the purpose of the kohen coming into the Ohel Moed is for an avodah, because we said before that biur rikonis is not allowed. But the sharis were done niddermont. But we're not speaking about actually serving, doing an avodah. As beveim is given yirchatzu, can der noch sein kam avodah. Specifically nachher, the chiyuv rechitzu does nit adin in der avodas bei Ohel Moed, as jeder avodah dort darf besondere rechitzu, or das is adin in beveim al Ohel Moed. The Rebbe is going to explain further what that means. But basically what the Rebbe is saying is that there's a difference between, and this is what Rashi is telling us, there's a difference between when the kohen comes into the actual Mishkan, so then he has to wash one time, and then when the kohen is doing the Aveda of the Karbanis, he's doing different Avedas in the Mizbeach. Every time he comes and does a different Aveda in the Mizbeach, he has to wash his hands and feet with the kier beforehand. And the Rebbe is going to explain what that means. Hey, the Tam achilik zwischen dem Din von Levishas bigdei kahuna, wo es ist derselbe Chiyuv, v'hayu al Aaron, in beide Fallen, und dem Chiyuv rechitza, was es ist a besondere sort Chiyuv bei jeden von den zwei Fallen is moving bepashtas. So why is it by the bigdei kahuna, the Torah doesn't differentiate between when the kohen is going into the Mizbeach, by the Mizbeach, or he's going into the Ohel Moed? It says when he does the Aveda, he has to wear the begadim. Mashenkin over here, we see there's a difference. So the Rebbe says, big dikon is angegeert zu der Aveda Gufa. The Aveda muss getan werden sein dik, angetan in the begadim. Und the Rebbe is in them, nicht shaykh zu mechalak sein zwischen Ohel Moed and Mizbeach. When it comes to the begadim of the kohen, that's shaykh to the Aveda. The Aveda has to be done with wearing the garments. So there's no difference if he's doing the Aveda in the Ohel Moed or the Mizbayiach. Yibala's Beda is der selber chiyuv, since it's the same obligation that he has to be wearing special clothing. She has to wear the begadim when he's serving in the Ohel Moed or by the Mizbayiach. However, washing your hands and feet, that's a preparation to the Aveda. So you have to wash your hands and feet as a preparation before you start the Aveda. Und der Far kennen dem Faran Achilek. And that Far again, und der Far ken und is in them Faran Achilek. And that's why there is a difference between the two. Before you made was is a Far Machter Mokim, nor von Mokim, Far Mokim, Far Kenim, und wo man kommt rein. Nur if as man mit Zumzum is genug die einzige Rechitze. Wenn man geht dort rein, afila oif mer Aveda. So when you're going into the Ohel Moed, which we know the Ohel Moed, that was the tent of meeting, it was a closed place. So since the Ohel Moed was a closed place, only the Kohanim went there, and they went there for a specific time. So the Torah is telling us that one rechitza is enough. Was the Mizbayiach is in Chotzar Mishkan wo es gefunden sich euch Levim Yisraelim, welche bringen die Karbonis Zera und Praven Smicha Chuli. However, when it comes to the Mizbayiach part, where was the Mizbayiach? The Mizbayiach was in the Chotzer. So the Chotzer, every time they have to wash their hands and feet, because over there's Yisraelim and there's Levim, and they have to bring Karbonis and there's Smicha. So that's why each time that there is a Avodah by the Mizbayiach, in other words, Karbonis, they have to wash their hands. So basically, it's a massive chiddush over here. Because when you read the pasuk, you think, hey, it's all one big thing. You're not paying attention to the Aveda in the actual Ohel Moed or the Mizbayiach. You think it's all one big challenge. But based on this, there's a very big difference. There's a chiyuv rechitza to actually going into the Ohel Moed. That is one time that he has to wash his hands. And then there's the Aveda of Karbonis, that when the Kohanim, which over there by the Ohel Moed, there's Levim, Yisraelim, over there the Kohen has to wash his hands each time, or there has to be washing hands each time there's Aveda being done. Vav. Now we can appreciate and understand this nuance that Rashi says that what's a case that the Kohen goes into Ohel Moed, when he has to be mocked there, when he has to bring the Keteiros of Shachris, and in the evening he has to bring the Keteiros. So we asked before, why does Rashi have to tell us examples? You're telling us all the Avedas in the Ohel Moed. So the Rebbe says, Kavanas Rashi is Kapasha Sosheni. The Chiyuv Rechitza is Tzvei Malatov. This Chiyuv of washing your hands and feet, because we said that when they come into the Ohel Moed, they only have to wash really one time. But this obligation of washing by the Ohel Moed, a day will come out you wash twice. When? In the morning and the evening. When the Kohen is going to go in to bring the Keteiros in the Ohel Moed in the morning and in the evening. And it's a simple reason. After the Kohen finishes his Avedas in the Ohel Moed in the morning, is Dibra Kosa behavior. The Torah tells me very common cases. So after the morning service, the Kohen leaves. He leaves the Ohel Moed. Doesn't stay there a whole day. As ben arboim is abazundre bevayim. So now when he comes in the evening, he doesn't hang out there the whole day. He does his Aveda, he does what he has to do, and he leaves. So then he has to come back in the evening to be makter Keteiros again. A zweite Knesset zu lieb der Aveda von Ben Arboim. Ufrat als eben soll sagen, es ist frier sif beis. As man tarnet bleiben in the Ohel Moed, eben ist nicht vernommen mit der Shars Bakedesh. We said before that you cannot stay in the Ohel Moed just tamazeh. You got to do your Aveda and leave. Der Tanfer was sagt Rashi und kleibt Stavke die Dugmais von Keteiros. So why does Rashi pick these examples of Keteiros? Well, Leut Rashi is Haktedes, the erste Aveda von Tag bei Omed, und Vimela is damals the erste Knisa, when it starts on the Likkutei till Chaman Sev Zayin. There's a machlekes, what was the first Aveda? So according to Rashi, we're going to learn in Sev Zayin how the first Aveda in the Ohel Moed, or the first Aveda of the day, was the Ketedis. So the first Aveda in the Ohel Moed was the Ketedis. So therefore, Underdiver, Nachdem wie man is sich reichets, beveim lahakt your Ketedis. So after you wash your hands and feet, to bring the Ketedis, darf man schon nicht haben, came bas unter the Chitza, if the andere Aveda is kavuas befnim shalachar zeh. So any Aveda afterwards in the actual Ohel Moed, you don't have to tell me to wash your hands because you already washed your hands. The only time that you have to actually wash your hands is bevayim al Ohel Moed, when you come into the Ohel Moed. So the first time you come in, the first Aveda is the Ketedis. And then after that you have other Avedas, you don't have to wash your hands. But after you're done, you got to leave. So when did they come back? They came back in the evening. Now obviously if another kohen would come into the Ohel Moed, he has to wash his hands too. Rashi will is bringing them chidush from pasuk. As the chiyuv the chitza is eiftem bevayim, or need eiftem l'shar. Rashi is telling us the chidush that this whole avoda, that the whole rechitza is only when you come into the Mishkan. Und drüber nachdem wie der kohen wascht sich bevayim lahakdir. So after the kohen comes in and he washes his hands, and then he comes in to be mak to the Ketedis, which according to Rashi, that's the first Aveda of the day. This is page 219. As the Rechitza is verbunden nur mit Avedas HaKetedis, nor remained zu anweisen den bestimmten Zman von Bevayim al Ohel Moed. Rashi over here is telling us when he says Lahaktir Shachas Rashi is stressing not that the washing is connected with Avedas HaKetedis. He wants to bring out the specific time by Bevayim al Ohel Moed, Beifin Kavua, Gate Menaran Ohel Moed, Sfei Ma'atok, Shachas Ben Arbaim Lahaktir. The only times you come in every day, Bevayim al Ohel Moed, is twice, in the morning and the evening. So that's why Rashi tells me these two examples, because it's very, very exact. The only time you come into the Ohel Moed twice a day is in these two examples. Rashi is there noch meisiv Oila Hazis Midam Par Kohen HaMashiach Sira Avedazar, and now we can appreciate why Rashi brings also these examples. Or when the Kohen has to sprinkle the blood of the Par Kohen HaMashiach or the Sira Avedazara, Al Di Avedas Befrim, Gein Nita Rein in Im Klau from the Dalid Di Avedas HaKvus, because these Avedas do not go into the general time of when the carbon of when these Avedas are being done. In other words, it's not a kavuadik thing. It's not something which is done every single day. It's not established. Let's say Rashi's mefardi tzvei fashidnei fanim in bevayim al Ohel Moed. Alf the kvius the kenisa b'chol yem v'yem bevayim lahakir shakras b'chol hemshach hakavur shelo ben arbaim ketedis. So Rashi is first telling me the set time of when bevayim al Ohel Moed will apply. When they have to wash their hands and feet, when they go in, is twice a day. And Beis, when the bevayim is b'chtei tzutanan and inyim yuchad, or when they have to go into the Beis Hamikdash, or I should say the Mishkan, to do something special, a specific thing. It's not something which is done. It's not an established thing. So now, basically, just to recap what the Rebbe said al pi nigla, is that the pasuk is telling me, splitting up two separate things, and that's what's bothering Rashi, because the rechitza that the kohen has to do when he comes into the Ohel Moed, or when he goes to the Mizbayiach, is two separate rechitzas. One, he goes into the Bevayim al Ohel Moed, which is a closed place. It's only for the kohenim. That he only has to wash once. Any avodah afterwards, bevayim, he doesn't have to wash. However, once he leaves, he has to wash again when he comes back. That's only twice a day. Or a specific example is when there's a case of par kohen HaMashiach or Sida Avedazar. So that's al pi nigla, how it answers all the questions that the Rebbe had before, because it's really two separate things. And Rashi gives dafka these examples because it's not just some examples, but it's really the only cases that this happens, either bekvius or inyum yuchad. Okay, zayin. And yonan meflaim pirish Rashi zal derech halacha. You could find many wondrous things in Rashi al derech halacha. By the Aveda von Aaron ben Egedi Neres am Neres Dr. Pasik Besaif Parshas Tetzavet Zve Lashenis. By the Aveda by Baker steht the Lashon Behaitivas Aneres by Ben Harboim Bahalis Aaron Esaneres. It says that by the Aveda of Aaron when he lit the menorah, so it says like this. In the morning it says when Aaron Behaitivas Aneres, which means like when he makes the neres good. And at night it says when he lights the menorah. So as you do it, the pluksa to Rashi bit the Rambam and the Pirush from Batavas and Neres. It's well known the difference between Rashi and the Rambam in what does Hatavas Haneres mean. The Rambam learned as Adlokas Haneres he Hatavasam. According to the Rambam, this is a Rambam in Hilchas Tamidin and Musafin. The Rambam holds that when they lit the menorah in the morning, when it says Hatavas Haneres, Hatavas means they lit the menorah. Now, so they lit the menorah twice a day, in the morning and the evening. Rashi says that Hatava doesn't mean that they lit the menorah, rather Hatava means they clean the menorah. So according to Rashi, they only lit the menorah once a day. So based on this, Rashi will come out that he's going to his opinion that he holds that they lit the menorah once. In Derech HaPshat Leiksich, so Derech HaPshat you could say, as the Iker Aveda is the menorah, as the Iker Aveda in the menorah is, what's the main Aveda? In lighting the menorah, Hadlakas HaNeres is actual lighting the menorah. Masheke Nokia Bazich and Dish the menorah Hatava is neat mer v'achana. However, when it comes to the actual cleaning out the menorah, that's not Hadlakas HaNeres, that's a preparation to light the menorah. Of two great dineris. You have to clean the menorahs in the morning in order to light them at night. When we says euch mashma bepashas from the psukim was reden wegen der menorah as in von halos haner steht kam pomim. When it comes to the actual lighting of the menorah, the Torah says many times, speaks about Parshas Truma, Parshas Tetzaveh, Parshas Emer, Ba'aleischa, tells me all these different times when we have to light the menorah. Mashayik and Hatavas haner is for the month. However, when it comes to cleaning out the menorah, it only says it one time. Blaze in Mol and Beis, Nitzvish the Psukim, was Redim in Amenera, doesn't speak about in regards to the Psukim, in regards to the Menera, nor but there Agam in their Parsha from Mizbayiach Akteris, it speaks about the Parsha of the Mizbayiach Akteris, so onzeichnen dem Zman von Akteris Akteris, but Baker Betivas and Eres Akterino. Okay, high time Zog Rashi da, as the Beveim Alayim made is given la Hakter. So therefore Rashi says that when they came into the Ohel, it was for what? To be Makter Dictatus. Because according to Rashi, the main Aveda is in the Ohel in the morning was the Ktetis. The Arangim B'Shachas is Be'ikar Tzalib Ktetis. The reason why the Kohen went to the Ohel is not for the actual lighting of the menorah, but rather the main Aveda is to be Makter Dictatus. Was nit kein Aveda for sich, nor blaze a hechsher to the Alakam in our boim, because we know, like we said, the Heitibu is not it's only a hechsher, it's only preparation for lighting the menorah at night. And therefore Rashi says that when you're Makter Dictatus, Rashi is telling me that the Rechitza was not only for their Aveda, nor blaze, so unvising them as a man from Bavay, and we explained that the whole examples that Rashi gives is to tell me the time when they actually came in to the Ohel to wash. Therefore, when it comes to the morning shachas, Rashi says lahakter ktedes from das is the erste aveda, because that's the first aveda. The Rebbe notes there oich haktedes haktedes with halos and eres als simen of them beveim from the ben arboim. But haktedes haktedes on halos and eres werden getan in dem selben zman besmichas zelzeh. Rashi uses this lashon to tell us that that time of the ktedes and the menorah was done simultaneously. Okay, I'll record the rest later.